One of the extra revenue streams for your indoor playground is special events. Now, a special event could be a lot of different things. It's just an event that you probably would hold that is not part of open play. Usually it's going to cost you a little bit more money. Therefore, you're going to sell tickets to this event. And it's basically kind of an extra revenue stream. Most of our special events include a character, but not always. But today we're going to talk about the pros and cons of having your character in-house versus hiring an outside company for the character. Let's talk about the pros of hiring an outside company first. When I first started my indoor playground, I hired an outside company to do my character events. That means I contacted a character company. I asked if they had such and such character available for a certain date, and then I would pay them their money for that character to come appear at our indoor playground. Similar to hiring a character for a birthday party. Now, the pros of this is that normally the character companies have a lot of different characters, right? So generally speaking, they're gonna pretty much have the character you want, and they're a little bit more reliable than, say, having it in-house. And I'll tell you the reason why in just a little bit. Because if for some reason their character is sick or can't make it, they have a staff of characters that can usually take that character's place, and then they can replace your character for you. So if you are selling pre-tickets, you don't have to worry so much about having an emergency and then not being able to hold the event. That to me is really stressful, especially as a business owner, because you have people relying on you. If you're already taking the money up front, it's really hard to have to refund the money and things like that, especially if you're in need of that money. Being a small business, we don't have a lot of room for having those type of errors. When unforeseen circumstances happen, it's nice to have a character company that already has a repertoire of staff that has nothing to do with you. So there's a little bit less stress on your part because of the fact that they take care of the character aspect. Now, having a professional character come is really nice because the character already has activities planned. They already have a performance plan for the event already. So you don't have to plan anything yourself, which makes it really, really easy, because then all you have to do is check people in, just manage the facility, make sure that things are running smoothly. But as far as activities go, as far as the entertaining of the kids go, you don't have to worry so much about that. Once you check people in, once the event has started, then you kind of can just sit back and just observe and then just do your normal thing until the event is over. So about the last year of when I was open, I really liked hiring character companies because of the fact that I ran a lot of events by myself, and it just allowed me to take a step back and not stress so much about the event, because I knew that the character company would take care of pretty much all the activities, and I was just there to make sure that everybody had a good time. I feel like with a character company, those are the two biggest pros. I'm gonna talk about the cons. Sometimes it just depends on the company. The characters can be inconsistent. Some characters sing, some characters don't sing. Some characters don't have a plan if they run out of activities. So things like that. So making sure that you have some sort of relationship with the same company over and over, where you have a good understanding of what's going to happen with each time they come and visit your facility, is ideal for that. The second thing is character companies are expensive. They are not cheap. So every single time you hire a character, it kind of cuts into your revenue costs, because you have to account for how much that character is. That means ticket prices can be higher, and that might deter people from buying tickets to the event because it's really expensive. Sometimes when the character is in high demand, it could cost you anywhere from like $200 or $400 for a character to come for an hour. A $400 character is going to be like a $30 or $35 ticket. If people have 2 or 3 kids, are they gonna buy $35 tickets for all 3 kids? And it really kind of narrows down who can afford to come to your character event. I would say that is like the biggest con of that. You lose a lot of your revenue because of the fact that you are hiring a character company to come and do those events. That also diminishes what you can make as far as revenue stream as well. When you're hiring an outside character company, you don't have the opportunity to make extra revenue outside of the event. And then lastly, I would say that you have to plan the event far in advance. You want to make sure that if you're hiring a character company, make sure that the character is available, but also you have to make sure that you're able to sell enough tickets to make that event worthwhile, especially if the character is an expensive character, right? Because if you didn't sell out tickets, you might be losing money that event. So planning far in advance, I think is definitely a con in this scenario. Sometimes it can be a pro, because if you sell at the event, you have a chance of being able to make more money by planning another event. So now let's talk about if you were to hire the character in-house and the pros and cons with that. What I mean is, hiring the character in-house is meaning you buy the costumes, you hire a specific staff to do the character. What is the pros of that? One, over time, you do save money, just depending on how popular the character is and how often you use the character. The reason for that is that you own the costume. So while the costume can be expensive up front, the more and more often you use the character, you save the money because you already own the costume. So the initial investment is expensive, but over time, it becomes cheaper and cheaper to have the costume already in your collection, so that way you can use the character as many times as you want. Having the costume in-house also is an additional revenue stream. It can be an additional revenue stream. You can rent out the character costumes for parties that are in your facility. You can open up yourself up to have the character travel. You can offer other services, like maybe having the character deliver things during the peak holiday season as well. So there's a lot of different things you can do when you actually own the costume in-house. That's the biggest 3 pros. What are the cons? Buying the costumes. Now, can you buy costumes that are not great quality and at a decent price point? Yes, but they're not gonna look realistic. They're not going to last a long time. And people are less likely to want to book your event when the characters don't look up to par on the quality level that they expect in their head. When you're buying costumes, don't cheap out on the costumes. I understand certain costumes are gonna be more expensive, and the initial cost of the costume might shock you. So the initial investment is going to kind of sting. And that is definitely a con. I definitely can see that. Another pro of having the costume in-house is you can have the character come for open play. You could have the character come for a birthday party. You can schedule the event 2 weeks in advance if you want. So you have a lot more leeway as far as like scheduling goes. Also, you add that costume to basically like, a normal everyday like open play. It kind of can draw more people to your facility as well. You can use the costume for marketing purposes. You can have them go to neighborhood markets, things like that, because you actually own the costume, and it can kind of become like a mascot for your playground. Even though the costume might cost you a lot of money, the overall cost of hiring somebody to be in the costume is much cheaper than hiring an outside character company to do it. So you do save in that aspect as well. I definitely think a con is also managing staff. It can be stressful to have a full staff to be in certain costumes. And what I found is sometimes your staff can be really unreliable. If you have one person that is usually in charge of being in costume and that person is sick or something like that, it might be really hard to replace them. Maybe you only have 2 staff members that do the costume. Maybe you schedule one of them, that person is sick, and the other one can't come in. So like things like that can be stressful, just because you might have already sold tickets ahead of time and people are expecting to come to your facility to do an event. Well, the staff member is not there. So then you might have to call and cancel, you might have to refund. Things like that is stressful when you have staff in-house. I think lastly, one of the biggest cons is you have to plan all the activities yourself. You have to manage the costume, you have to manage the staff member in the costume, you have to manage the activities and every little thing that the people in costume do. When you're hiring an outside character company, they usually have a handler that comes with them. And if the person is in a mascot costume, that handler will handle the music, making sure that the person in costume can see everything and is doing the activities, and kind of will manage the timing of all the activities. Well, when you have the costume and you are the person that's managing the mascot, you are in charge of everything. You're in charge of the music. You're in charge of managing the staff member in there. You're in charge of making sure the activities are timed out. You're in charge of what activities that costume does. So it is difficult if you're not really good at that. So that definitely can be a con in my opinion, because all the stress is on you. Everything for that event is on you, and you're definitely going to need a staff during that time, because it's not something you can run by yourself. You're going to need at least the person in costume, one person running the front desk, and yourself, and a handler for the mascot. So with that said, let's talk a little bit about tips about hiring staff. and what to look for when you're buying your own costume. For staff members, I recommend this for everybody, okay? You're looking for people that are self-starters. My advice really is that anybody that comes in now, just skip the interview process altogether and do like a working interview. Just ask them to come in for 2 hours. You can pay them for that 2 hours if you want, but just like kind of see how they do. I think that for somebody that's just playing a character and is not part of your normal everyday staff, I'm looking for people that are high school students that might be in theater that is not wanting a lot of hours. So I usually tell them ahead of time that you're probably going to be working only maybe a couple hours every weekend, you know, or 4 hours or the weekend, or sometimes during the weekday. The only downside of hiring high school students is they can't usually come in for open play because they're at school. So there might be a downside in that aspect, but as far as them not, you know, demanding a lot of hours and not wanting a certain amount of money in their paycheck, it's really helpful for you. I'm looking for staff members that doesn't need a lot of like verbal interaction from me. They can kind of get a good understanding of what is required from them by just me kind of explaining to them the process ahead of time. You're wanting somebody that's kind of a little bit extroverted, because when you're in costume, all your movements have to be exaggerated. Looking for a staff member that's extroverted, that is a self-starter, and that doesn't require a lot of hours. Usually how I do this is I ask the community, ask your local community, post in your Facebook group, or just ask the local moms that come to your indoor playground, hey, do you have a teenager that is interested in working at our facility? I find that it works really well for me. A lot of the staff members that I have hired were referrals from other members, and their kids were amazing and responsible. So I really liked that. I would post in a mom group or something like that, saying, hey, our place is hiring. We're looking for a responsible teenager to do this type of work. And usually I would get a local mom that would message me, and it's always worked really well for me. Obviously, this is not a job that requires a lot of skill. So for me, I usually pay them minimum wage plus a commission every single time they're in the costume. The reason why I do that is because sometimes if I want the staff member to come in and just work a couple hours, that doesn't require them to be in costume, they still get paid. Let's just say I'm hiring out the mascot for a birthday party. Obviously, I charge a little bit more for having the mascot there, so I kind of pass up some of that cost to the person in costume, because I do think being in the costume, it's hot, it's uncomfortable, so I do think that they deserve a little bit more for being in costume. So every single time they are in costume, I do tell them ahead of time, hey, you're coming in to be X, Y, or Z mascot. They do get an extra stipend on top of that for being the mascot for an hour or 2 hours. Hiring a high school student really definitely helps with the pay aspect of it. Now, it's really up to you how much you want to pay. That's kind of just my advice on a broad level. You can definitely do it however you want. Now, let's talk a little bit about costumes and what to look for if you're wanting to buy costumes in-house, okay? I have a list on my Amazon storefront for costumes for princesses that I think that are great quality that I have purchased before for my playground. So you can definitely look there. As far as mascot costumes, that's a little bit harder. Have I bought costumes all over the world? Yes, I have. I have bought them, you know, from China, from, you know, Mexico, all over, okay? Use some guidelines on what to look for when you're looking for a costume, okay? You're definitely looking to spend over $250. The high quality costumes, the high quality material, it's gonna cost you more than $250. Some costumes might cost you $600. You might spend upwards to a certain amount of money for costume. So definitely when you're looking at costume, definitely look in that price range, because you know that those costumes are gonna be better. Make sure that they have pictures of their costumes, okay? Sometimes the pictures that they put on their website is not accurate to what the costume will look like. What I find is that the more you spend on the costume, the more accurate the picture description is going to be. So those are my tips regarding having characters at your indoor playground. Hopefully that helps you. Talk to you next time.